Coming in at 5, SCP-2135. 2135 is the former 91st Street Station, a station of the New York City subway system located in Manhattan. Prior to its closure in February 1959, SCP-2135 was served by the 1 and 2 trains of the IRT Broadway, 7th Avenue line, bounded by the 96th Street Station to the north and the 86th Street Station to the south. 2135 was closed after platform expansion on the 96th Street Station rendered it impractical to continue servicing it. 2135's anomalous properties manifest twice a week at unpredictable intervals. Now during this time a train car, 2135A, will stop at the station for 15 seconds. 2135A is only perceivable to those standing on the subway platform at the time it arrives. Non-anomalous trains in service will pass right through it as if it were not there, and passengers on those trains are unable to see it. Now should any person board the train during this time, they will remain in a state of transit for 15 minutes and will be unable to exit the train. After 15 minutes the train will come to a halt and the subjects will arrive within SCP-2135-B. 2135-B is a replica of the island of Manhattan as it appeared on February 1st, 1959. After 24 hours have passed within 2135-B, the 91st Street Station will be closed and subjects will be unable to leave. As 2135 is located in a highly trafficked area, isolated containment is not feasible at the time. Coming in at number 4, SCP-1628. 1628 is a life-sized model of Washington DC as it appeared at an unknown time. It is not to scale, with many historically significant buildings clustered in the center and most other buildings being painted wooden blocks. The reproductions of historically significant structures are constructed from brass. The entrance to 1628 is located in an abandoned salt mine, with subjects entering a storage tunnel emerging from the reproduction of the Washington Monument. Entities living within 1628 are brass and iron humanoids, numbering 123. There appear to be only 9 individual models for these humanoids, set in exactly 11 sets. These humanoids are capable of communicating with outside people while in an active state, but will primarily speak in preset phrases, with communication not fitting these phrases being ignored. Once every 12 hours, all entities within 1628 will activate and begin moving through a set of activities roughly following the events of the sacking of Washington DC during the War of 1812. Area 1628 has been set up to contain 1628's entrance, constructed under the pretense of a Foundation front company. Entry to 1628 is permitted only during its active phase and is limited to personnel on exploratory expeditions. Communication with the beings within 1628 has shown that they are hostile only when provoked, and as such personnel are reminded to move with 1628's scheduled activity until it reaches an inactive state. Coming in at number 3, SCP-1395. 1395 is a cave located in Greece. Carbon dating of human remains and artifacts present within the cave suggest human habitation began sometime around BCE, which is consistent with 1395-A's claimed history. SCP-1395 anomalous properties manifest when people travel 300 meters inside the cave. Now after reaching this point, 1395-A will manifest, blocking the path that leads deeper into the cave. 1395-A is a humanoid entity, appearing to people as a silhouetted apparition. Now although it does not forcefully impede any attempts to leave the cave, many people who encounter the entity report a strong desire to stay within its presence. If approached by a person or group of people, 1395-A will engage with the subject in conversation, appearing to derive pleasure from describing and recounting its life. Following the encounter with the entity, 1395-A will demanifest, erasing all memories of the encounter from the person's mind. Foundation agents are currently working with the governments of Greece and the European Union to suppress public knowledge of 1395. A barbed wire fence has been erected to prevent unauthorized access to 1395. Coming in at number 2, SCP-1193. 1193-01 is a genetically normal human arm of unusual length, located in a drainage pipe inside the basement of a telephone switching station in Scottsdale, Arizona. 10 centimeters below the drainage grate, the arm terminates in an unremarkable human hand of indeterminate gender. Upon initial examination, the arm was believed to extend through the drainage pipe to a depth of 35 meters. SCP-1193-02 is a GPO-746 telephone, topaz yellow, which is used to communicate with 1193-01. Between 8:38 and 10:34 each weekday, the phone will ring 5 times. If answered, an unidentified voice will willingly engage in conversation with SCP personnel. The voice on the other end of the line invariably claims to be a human being and regularly mistakes the individual on the other end of the phone for an authority figure. Interrogation to date has therefore been relatively uncomplicated. The borehole containing 1193-01 is to be capped with a tungsten steel grate containing a locking 2.5 cm endoscopy aperture. At 48-hour intervals, the borehole is to be endoscopically inspected to a depth of 4 km for further manifestations of 1193-01. The basement containing 1193 is to be monitored at all times by Foundation Interrogator. And finally, coming in at number 1, SCP-052. 052 is a Type R4 New York City subway train. Official records indicate the train was built in 1932 and decommissioned for scrap in 1975. Nevertheless, it continues to appear on the Uptown A/D track at the 59th Street and 8th Avenue station at 11:57 p.m. every Saturday. The train itself is in perfect condition and labeled as an A train. 052 appears at the designated time, opens its doors to accept/discharge passengers for approximately 5 minutes, then closes its doors and disappears. It does not appear to ever contain passengers except for those leaving the train during its appearance. The majority of people that have boarded the train have not been recovered. Passengers leaving 052 claim to have boarded on various dates, from 1976 up to 2204. The latter claims he thought 052 was a 300th anniversary special train. Subjects always return with no knowledge of time on board. Although it is not possible to remove 052 from the New York City subway system, its predictable behavior allows the Foundation to prevent the public from encountering it. The 59th Street A/B/C/D station is to be closed to the public from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. on Saturdays and Sundays under the pretext of track maintenance. During that time, the station is to be staffed with agents from Mobile Task Force Gamma 6. Agents have been ordered to prevent accidental public access to the station and to capture anyone seen leaving 052. Anyone who has been on 052 must be transported to Site 21 for debriefing and processing. Coming in at 5, SCP-2385. 2385 is a subterranean network composed of undifferentiated human tissue. The matter is bioluminescent, with the tunnels that make up the structure winding and interlocking, forming a multicursal maze. 2385 has a single entry point. Attempts to either access or assess 2385 from the outside via tunneling and ground penetrating radar respectively have been met with failure. Due to this, the true size of 2385 is unknown. SCP-2385-1 and 2 are vermiform lifeforms which periodically grow with SCP-2385. 2385-1 and 2 specimens typically range between 1 to 4 meters in length. They possess humanoid heads which are connected to a muscular tail by a fatty midsection. 2385-1 will violently assault anything they perceive to move, including each other. 2385-1 will constrict incapacitated prey prior to consuming smaller organisms whole. Will also attempt to penetrate larger prey and consume them from within. Instances will wander 2385 with no apparent direction and seem to be solely motivated by hunger. Same. 2385-2 on the other hand are typically larger and are identifiable by fibrous growth over their eyes. They are completely docile and have never been observed feeding. They will converge with one another and seem to travel through 2385 with intent. Coming in at 4, SCP-4959 is an animate decomposed Pterosaur occupying a large stone chamber underneath the temple of the feathered serpent in Mexico. Foundation paleontologists have determined that 4959 is an abnormally large Aztecid Pterosaur. Approximately 70% of 4959's flesh is missing, leaving its skeleton exposed and visible. The remainder of its flesh appears necrotic but shows no signs of decaying further. 4959 is anomalously resistant to damage and decay, and samples taken show no abnormalities from expected composition except for high concentrations of iridium. 4959's eye sockets are empty but luminous with bright green light. When agitated, 4959 may also emit a multicolored corona of fire from from its wings, skull, and neck. Extensions and wings of the main underground chamber contain several hundred animated bony humanoid and pre-pterodactyloid constructs designated 4959A. These constructs are composed mainly of bones attached to a central ossified heart through unknown means, and are often adorned with strips of decayed fabric, feathers, or precious stones. As its great size prevents it from leaving its chamber, 4959A instances are nocturnally deployed through various hidden tunnels to hunt and provide 4959 with live food, usually birds, lizards, or other small animals. 4959 will then consume whatever food whole. All tunnels leading to 4959's chamber have been sealed with reinforced gates. A large live animal is to be deposited down a constructed shaft into the chamber weekly. I apologize in advance for all my bad pronunciations. Coming in at number 3, SCP-4947. 4947 is supposedly an annelid entity possibly native to Finland. According to data, 4947 spends much of its time underground, emerging rarely for unclear reasons. 4947 does not appear to require sustenance or sleep. Actual physical descriptions of 4947 vary between sightings. It has been described as anywhere between 0.3 meters and 7 meters in diameter, with either segmented chelicerae, an anterior sucker, or a canine muzzle. It is unknown if 4947 is sapient or even an entirely unique entity. 4947A designates a series of faults located on the border between Finland and Russia. 4947A is maintained primarily by collapses resulting from 4947's constant burrowing and does not correspond to any naturally occurring fault zone. 4947A's primary anomalous effect is the creation of holes in the surrounding area. With the exception of 4947B, landscapes and objects around 4947A will develop gradually expanding holes on their surface. This also extends to living organisms. 4947B designates several buildings, all of which contain at least one hinged door. Instances of 4947B, along with everything residing within, are immune to 4947's whole generation. Due to the lack of information on 4947's physiology as well as the nature of its anomaly, it remains uncontained. Coming in at number 2, SCP-903. 903 is an incomplete Site-19 utility tunnel that connects to the SCP containment wing with the Lambda laboratory wing. The tunnel is 3 meters in diameter, 50 meters long, and buried approximately 5 meters underground. Because of its incomplete nature, 903 is an empty concrete tunnel that contains no piping, wiring, or other utility equipment. It also contains an old rail system that consists of a single monorail that spans the entire length. 903 was originally used as a discrete and secure method of transporting SCPs from the containment wing directly to the Lambda wing. However, this practice was discontinued shortly after Incident 9031, where the presiding personnel violated standard operating procedure and transported several SCPs at once rather than one at a time. The resulting incident is most likely what caused 903 to obtain its current anomalous properties. Access to either side of 903 is to be restricted to authorized research personnel only. The entrances must be sealed and kept under surveillances at all times. During testing, under no circumstances are personnel to enter 903 or attempt to cross it. Any persons attempting to do so will be subject to lethal force. Any test subject that has passed through or emerges from 903 will be immediately destroyed. And finally, coming in at number 1, SCP-630. 630 is a 130 meter wide underground glacier and at least 12 kilometers long, moving at an estimated 30 meters a year. It is comprised of what is theorized to be a mixture of water ice, which is an opaque black and does not reflect any form of visible light or electromagnetic radiation. Any sources of water exposed to 630 crystallize, forming ice which behaves for all intents and purposes as part of the original glacier. Personnel working around 630 report frequent auditory hallucinations, most often the sound of someone pleading or calling for help from within the ice. Staff have reported that over a period of time these hallucinations can create a difficult to resist impulse to make physical contact with SCP-630. Made with 630, the body ceases to reflect any incoming light, causing it to turn pitch black and rendered blind, deaf, and mute. Extensive testing indicates that 630 affects only warm-blooded animals, birds, and mammals. Reptiles, amphibians, invertebrates, and fish remain unaffected aside from going into hypothermic shock. Once exposed, these specimens are classified as SCP-6301. Affected subjects do not respond to any visual or auditory stimuli, instead feeling feeling out their surroundings through touch and vibration, and will often follow walls and hide in corners. Over the course of exposure, 630-1 will begin to show lessened speed and motor skills and will eventually find a corner or enclosed space, curl into a fetal position, and finally cease movement altogether, which is usually what I do when I go home. Or at the weekend, I hibernate. As of right now, 630 is contained underground in the remains of a copper mine just north of Peru. The chamber containing it is to be brightly lit and sealed behind blast doors.
Crawling its way in at number 5, we have SCP-093. At first glance, this SCP isn't from another dimension or a monster. In fact, it appears just to be a small red disc carved from cinnabar, covered in circular engravings and unknown symbols. Honestly, that alone is pretty scary considering how much mercury is present in this toxic ore. But the fact that humans once dyed their clothes with this poison isn't what makes this SCP horrifying. Nope, there is a whole new world of fear to be discovered through this little crimson checker. Depending on who holds the disc, it will change color. As of right now, no one's completely sure as to why it changes color or what each one signifies. Some hypothesize that it has to do with the regrets of each person, although that's neither here nor there. The important thing is that when the disc is a different color, it leads to different locations. If left unheld by a human or on a surface that is not a mirror, 093 will move autonomously and seek out the nearest mirror. Once settled on a reflective surface, it will turn the silvery sheet into a portal of sorts. The location that it leads to changes depending on the color that the disc currently exudes. Through various tests, the Foundation has sent many people into the portals and discovered a terrifying alternate reality. In the mirror lies an alternate Earth, in which a hyper-religious sect took over. A godlike figure appeared and told people of an upcoming holy war in which all survivors would be considered clean of sin. To help them fight, the figure granted humans a decade of insane technological advances and then immediately peaced out. This led to the discovery and use of a substance known as his tears. Dramatic, right? It's still unclear as to what this stuff actually is, but the folks in the Holy War world used it for a whole lot of different reasons. Mostly though, it was used to cleanse sin and bring people closer to him. Criminals, adulterers, non-believers, you name it, forcibly cleaned through his tears. However, in a shocking turn of events, nobody could have seen this coming. Oh, why didn't somebody just think of the children? The stuff had some gnarly side effects. Too much of it in a pure state can and will turn people into horrifying monsters. Of course, why didn't anybody think of this before? Known as the unclean, these are giant bisected humanoids that crawl around on the ground using their huge arms. No face, no legs, no communication. These things usually move around slowly, but they can be very quick if agitated or alerted to a presence. And if they get close enough to a life form, they absorb it. At first they seemed controllable, dealable, but soon enough they brought about a genetic apocalypse, absorbing everything and never dying. Nobody could escape the unclean, and as such this world ended. All that remains is the unclean. Let's just hope none of them make it to this world. Oh boy. Coming in at number 4, we have SCP-1437. Some believe that this SCP provides another portal to the world of the unclean, which is a terrifying prospect. But hey, there's no proof as of yet, so let's just forget about it, right? 1437 is an endless hole in the desert that acts as an access point to an unknown number of parallel universes. These alternate worlds are only accessible through the mouth of the hole. All attempts to access 1437 through digging, blasting, or otherwise circumventing the main entrance leads to thick, impenetrable rock. Every once in a while, objects will fly out of the hole at great speeds. Things like a quarter, dirt, rocks, a map of North America written in Spanish, an alien skyline, discs of solid gold, and messages requesting objects, weather, services, and other things have been spat out. All sorts of these objects point to totally different versions of Earth existing somewhere at the end of this underground tunnel. Lots of potential for different organisms too, although living beings seem to die somewhere along the interuniversal highway. With other universes come other Foundation type organizations and other objects flying out of other holes at other ends. Some are similar, some are almost unrecognizable. Religious themes, risk-averse procedures, holes of different sizes, locations, interpretations, and more. There have been attempts to communicate with folks through the tunnel, whether it be through tributes, messages, questions, proposals to cooperate, or my personal favorite method of liaison, dead D-class. Charming. The unpredictability and infinite possibilities associated with this hole are what make it so scary. Folks from other worlds may try to breach our world with weapons and cause issues. Plus, a couple of saliva-covered dismembered human body parts have been discovered, and I really don't know what to make of that. So let me know what you think that might be down in the comments. Coming in at number 3, Tufto's Proposal, the Scarlet King, the big bad. The interdimensional being just waiting to crash through the thin walls separating us from sure destruction. I love this guy. So many good tales focus on the Tomato Prince, so many entries making vague references to his incredible reality-altering power. Depending on who you ask and what their headcanon is, the raspberry royalty can be a whole lot of things. He also seems to have his fingers in a whole lot of pies, with plenty of popular entries seemingly hinging on the existence of a cardinal. My favorite Bloody Baron theory involves a certain procedure named after a certain doctor involving certain unnameable acts. But the fact that this could be hypothetically overwritten by Tufto's Proposal is also very interesting. If nobody messes with what Montauk is doing, the reddish royalty may remain contained for as long as we would like. However, humans are typically prone to messing with things, so we'll see how that goes. To summarize, the Scarlet King wants us all gone, and a very tenuous seal holds him in place. Good luck. Coming in at number 2, SCP-2639. Some good old video game violence, what's not to love? Unstoppable massacres of the innocent, you say? Yeah, that's pretty rough. This SCP is basically 3 teens who got sucked into a modded version of Quake circa 1997. Their physical bodies ceased to exist and their minds ran inside of the computer. This fits the quota of another dimension, a virtual one. They would spawn into infinite new games and chat in the lobby between each bout. However, these games would physically take place in different areas across the world. A 1 kilometer squared zone would be sectioned off and the big beefy gun-toting avatars would spawn in. The environments were destructible because they were real environments. Grunts, Rottweilers, and other modded enemies were actually real people covered with video game skins, caught within the murder zone. So the teens in control had no idea that this is happening though, and as such mucked thousands of people, all the while thinking they were just playing Quake. A Foundation member was able to reach out to the trio and fill them in on the noxious activities they had been unwittingly engaged in. The news was not received particularly well. For a while, the teens became moody and withdrawn, a pretty reasonable response for hormonal gamers who had recently discovered they were mass murderers by accident. However, this story does have a happy ending. After having a good think about it, the good folks trapped inside the desktop decided they would become a mobile task force of their very own, Omega 9, the Scrubs. They act as a rapid response team for containment breaches involving violent, hostile anomalies. Non-human eliminations only, naturally. Even with this happy ending, it's a pretty terrifying group. In fact, the destructive power of these 3 was further explored in SCP-5000, where they were summoned by the New Look Foundation to take out some definitely non-human baddies, who actually turned out to be human after all. They're only as good as the hand leading them, so if they fall in with some bad company, we're all pretty screwed. And lastly at number 1, SCP-1936. Visit the town of Daleport, a sleepy, serene tourist town full of lovely churches, inns, and horrible abominations. So close. Following the misguided efforts of the good Reverend Hawshore, the burgeoning villa of Daleport became shrouded in a shivering mist of sorts. Through this mist, plenty of Lovecraftian Elder God style creatures were summoned and bound to the town, leading to an all-out war between horrors. Of course, there's no war without collateral, and the good people of Daleport definitely got a hefty taste of death and despair. The mist has dispersed now, revealing the damage done, but while it hung over the villa, unspeakable events took place. Some were friendlier than others, attempting to assimilate the humans rather than destroy them. But for every triangle-faced peacoat-wearing humanoid, there were multiple decapitation-happy, viscera-spraying beasts to boot. Hawshore wanted to bring all sorts of cosmic beings to one place and have them duke it out for total control of the laws of the universe. He had foreseen that there were many all-powerful beings, but too many were unable to totally wrench control for themselves, so being a super genius diplomat, Hawshore brought them all to one place for a cosmic battle royale of sorts, winner take all. His plan was to worship whatever came out on top for some choice rewards. This, as you may have guessed, did not go according to plan. The whole town was destroyed and no humans were left alive to be worshippers. There are plenty of anomalies strewn about the town now, like rooms that get smaller when you enter, floating corpses that move in only one direction regardless of force applied, and other unexplainable phenomena. What happened to the remainder of the so-called gods, we may never know. Mysteries are good for your health, right? If you're still itching to take a peek behind the cosmic veil, maybe reconsider. These interdimensional nasties would be reason enough to stay right where you are and ponder strictly the understandable.